welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia. This week I'm reviewing episode 3 of volume 2 of Vigilantes, aka episode 7.5. You know the rules and so do I. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about this particular episode and you will be read out in a future video. And once you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. Now on to the review, and we start out, as we often do, with the positives. Though with a slight little thing I just want to say here and now. So here we are with the first half episode. There are 2 half episodes in this particular volume. It is listed as 7.5. And I'm going to be honest, and maybe this should go in the negatives, I'm not particularly sure, but whatever. I'm recording this only having just finished reading it, but it does kind of feel a little bit pedantic to me to have this being a half episode. This could quite easily have been episode 8 or episode 3, but it isn't. It's episode 2.5 or episode 7.5, depending on how you want to look at this. And I suppose that given the length, they couldn't have called it episode 8, given how short it was, but there is a part of me that now worries exactly how this would end up being handled in the event that this whole manga ends up going to an anime. You know, are we going to get a more important thing in the second half of what would be this episode, and that's going to make everything a little bit awkward? I really don't know, but into the positives, and I have to say that as a whole entity, it was perfectly fine. It was a fun slice of hero, fun and action, giving me everything that I enjoy about this series, plus a little bit more so besides. This is not a narratively significant episode per se. It doesn't change or advance the plot, nor does it recontextualize anything. But with that said, it's not totally without worth either. It's good to get an episode that's just centered around Crawler, which I know will sound silly given that A, this is a story for the most part that's told from his point of view anyway, so being happy that he gets an episode centered around him kind of feels a little bit silly, and B, it doesn't really quite go as far deep into, well, his feelings, how he got to be where he is, as really I would have liked it. But with all that said, I'm happy to get an episode where we get to see Crawler in his natural habitat, so to speak. We're seeing him as this friendly neighbourhood superhero as we have seen him in the past, and seeing him do that role rather well. Even if personally he'd rather be taken a little bit more seriously than just being that, but, you know, with all that said, he's totally cool where he is right now, at least as far as that's concerned. He wants to do this. He wants to help people with problems big and small. He's just as likely to save someone from a burning building as he is to help an old lady cross the street. He's just as likely to spend time cleaning litter off the streets as he is to throw himself into a life or death situation to save a member of the public. None of this stuff really is the kind of things that you would expect to see pro heroes doing, certainly not from the main series, but here we are seeing him do it, and none of this stuff is things that's going to change the world or change the direction of this manga, but you know, it's stuff that he wants to do. It's not going to make the world a drastically different place, but it will make it a slightly better one, even if it is rather uncool, as Popstep puts it. Because to him, quite frankly, there's more to being a hero than just what we see in the main series. There's more to being a hero than just punching people really, really hard. Superpowers don't make someone a hero. It's what people do with or without that powers that makes them heroic, and this is seeing a different angle of that. That's seeing a different interpretation of this, and seeing it for what it is, it's fine. It really gets the point across, even though it might be seen as being a little bit of a lighter thing overall. Beyond this, there is a fine sense of humour once again, with our extended cast. Popstep has another couple fun moments in this episode, as does Knuckle Duster. They're really leaning into him being rather restless and out of sorts, given everything that's happening at the moment, which is probably something that's going to continue to be built upon. I know that it was in the previous episode. It's going to be a thing likely for the next couple episodes at least. I really hope they don't end up dragging this feeling of listlessness with him out for the rest of this volume, because it's going to start to overstay its welcome. But given recent events in the main series, there's a part of me that worries that that's just kind of a trend of the entire My Hero Academia franchise. But hey ho, diddly do, we move on. But you know, maybe how do I put this? I think that the fact that he's still feeling listless might be the one true thing that's stopping this being considered just out-and-out filler, even though that's a term that I have been in the past just said that I really don't like. But still, he's feeling out of sorts, and outside of all this, we're just seeing what Crawler feels about his current situation, and you know, it doesn't really set the stage for bigger things unless the giant woman hero character becomes a recurring one later on. There's not much here that really feels as though it's setting up for anything big, bold, crazy, or exciting. Look, I'll be honest, dear listener, I've had a really busy week this week, so whilst on the one hand I'm happy for a shorter and easier to digest episode, there really isn't really much to talk about without going into the minutiae of each even given page. Beyond the deeper meaning and importance of seeing Crawler saving the day in which we see him doing so, which is stuff that's fine, there's not really much else to see here. And just seeing him do that is fun. Sure, it might be only cool compared to your conventional superhero stuff, but it adds personality to him. It makes him feel a lot more relatable. It makes his whole shtick feel a lot more grounded, a lot more understandable. As I mentioned in the past, there's plenty of quote-unquote real superheroes who, in real life, who ultimately just end up doing the same thing, wagging their fingers at people that are littering and helping people cross the road. That's pretty much all that they can do because they haven't got superpowers, and we're just seeing a kind of interpretation of that in a world with superheroes, which, come to think of it, is really kind of a fantastic idea. It's just that I wish they just did a little bit more with that. I suppose you could say that about the episode as a whole. There is a part of me that just kind of wishes that there was just more stuff done with it in general, but at that point it wouldn't be a half episode. It would be something more substantial. Which again, given just how busy that I've been over the past few days or so, and still technically am busy, probably would have bent my head a little bit as I'd have tried to be finding time to do this and more, doing a more in-depth review, so I suppose I got my wish. I got a more easy-to-digest episode. I suppose in some way, shape or form you could say that this is a more realistic depiction of what life as a superhero would ultimately end up being, because in a world like this where there are so many superheroes, let's face it, if you were to become a hero, you probably wouldn't be spending every single day taking down villains. You know, if, say, for example, you were born into this world and you were lucky enough to become a hero, you're probably not going to be going on adventures every day or every week or every month. You're going to be spending a lot of time doing the more mundane stuff. It really reminds me of this talk that a police officer gave to me back when I was in high school, or rather gave to the class back when I was in high school about 20 years ago, and they said something along the lines of, there's a reason why The Bill, which is a police procedural show that was on TV around the time, he says, there's a reason why The Bill is only on 1 day a week, it's because the other 6 days they're spending doing paperwork, which weirdly enough feels relevant to this, you know. I will be honest, I would be perfectly fine that when the main series ends, when My Hero Academia ends, if there would be like a flash forward sequence where we see like Izuku Midoriya in 20 years time, but instead of seeing him doing some big, epic and exciting, we just kind of cut to him and he's just quietly doing paperwork in the corner office. Which, you know, would be kind of silly, but at the same time, I'd be perfectly fine with that. That would be a perfect way to end it for me. But of course, they're probably not going to get to do that whenever they do that, whether that's next year or the year after, whatever. But we're now starting to get distracted. So with that said, before we get too far, of course, let's talk about the negatives. And, well, there's not really much to say here. This is ultimately going to be a fairly short episode overall because, like I say, there's not much to talk about here. The big negative that I have is that this episode is just kind of innocuous. There's not really much here. It's fun for what it is. It's cute. It's exciting. I suppose that if you'd taken a short break from this and you came back to it, this would be a fine way to get back into things. Like, this would be perfectly fine as the opening episode to a season. Like, if this was the opening episode of Season 2, that would be fine. We get a little bit with these characters to refamiliarize ourselves with everything that's going on. We get to relearn what the big threat of the moment is. We get to relearn what our roles, or rather our characters' roles are in all of this. In that context, it's fine, but here and now, it's just kind of okay. Maybe the writers were about to go on holiday and this is the last thing that they did. Maybe they were at conventions, so it made to a shorter thing overall. It's fine. I do wish there was something a little more significant here to talk about, but I can't really fault it because what we do get here is good, and with that in mind, let's get into the overview and just say that as a whole entity, whilst it is short, this is a perfectly fun episode. I do wish that there was a little bit more something here to sink my teeth into. I think that the whole bit with Knuckles just talking about people having a weird evil face whilst he's funny is the same kind of thing that makes me go, huh, Are they setting up for something here? Is he going to punch someone in the face he really shouldn't have done? We'll soon see about that. Probably not. I mean, this episode just kind of feels a little bit innocuous. As I said previously, if it weren't for the fact that Knuckles just seems so listless within all of this, which seems to be tying to some kind of larger plot thread, I don't think there would be really much here of significance to really talk about. It's fine. It's fun. I wish there was more going on with it. Like, they could quite easily have had a bit where Crawler's saving the day, but something goes wrong, but it's only a minor thing that goes wrong. Like, a baby's bouncing down the road in their buggy and he has to save them, but he saves them, but he doesn't know where the mother is, and they got to spend the rest of the day trying to find the mother whilst dealing with a baby with a quirk. That would be fun. That would be cute. You know, put that into the episode when you eventually make this into an anime. Pad it out. Build it out. If you're not going to do something significant here, at least make it fun. But again, for what is it's fun enough. I suppose it had this particular volume had fewer chapters in it overall, and this really was episode 3 of it, then I probably would be a little bit more pissed off because I'd be feeling rather shortchanged. Like, if it was like the previous volume and there was only 5 episodes in it, and this was the 3rd one, I'd be kind of pissed off right about now, but, you know, it's fine, it's okay, it's good. With all that said and done, let us get into Comment Corner! And now we get into Comment Corner. Once again, we have Big X1 who's here to say, this was a great issue. I hope there is an anime of it. This one would look great. And I agree, last week's episode would look fantastic in an anime. It's frequently within this series, there are plenty of moments which really do feel like, well, I don't want to sound flippant when I say this, but they do feel like you're looking at a storyboard for an animation. So seeing these things actually brought to life and see them in action would be great. There is a part of me, though, that feels that you'd need to do a little bit more with these episodes because given how much of this time is spent on action sequences, you'd need to do more because whilst it might take 3 or 4 pages to get for an action sequence, that's only because of the format that we're reading it in. Like, as an animated thing, it might only last 3 seconds. I remember that in my studies of my master's degree, when we were writing scripts, every page of the script would be a minute. There's no way that you'd be able to do some of these fights in 3 minutes. They'd be looking to get them lasting longer than 30 seconds, so goodness knows how they're going to balance all this in the event the rumours that have been floated about of this getting an anime are true, but hey, that's not for me to worry about. The only things I have to worry about going forward is that if it does become an anime, hopefully it's not going to be broadcasting around the same time, going to be talking about Doctor Who or something like that. Even, you know, I do continue talking about Doctor Who, but that's a discussion for a whole other time. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you again for the next video, which hopefully will be longer and I'll be less busy. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!